Hi everybody, I'm Jack. This is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Well, this is actually my second video of the day. I just changed shirts up a little bit so I didn't look like I was doing a video, just rolling out videos. But I'm trying to make videos more than one a day right now because I'm trying to get a little ahead to go to the beach this coming weekend. Hang out with a couple of friends that I made at the Woodstock Fruit Festival. I'm really excited about that, more than you can imagine. To have a little conversation, to share some food with friends. But anyhow, today I wanted to talk about my raw vegan story, how it all began, because people ask. I do videos every day, so if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button right now, and then click on the little bell and send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. You know, I tend to forget from time to time that I do videos every day, and I got a lot of videos. I get questions from people sometimes, and I'm almost like, well, I've done a video on that. I'll just refer them or whatever, but you know, or they'll go back or search the channel and you can see it. But you know, I realize that not everybody, you know, is going to go back and watch a video from a year or 2 years ago. So it doesn't hurt to refresh the story from time to time. And sometimes it just kind of puts things in perspective too, even for people that aren't necessarily asking, because I think, you know, we tend to forget when you see people doing this thing on YouTube and you see where they are now, it tends to erase that. That's all people can see. That's all people can see. You know, so I like to pound that message, like, you know, I came from a place, it wasn't like I've been this pristine person that has just been kind of this little, you know, fruit and veggie hippie for years and years and years that doesn't know what it's about on the other side. I got a story, I got a backstory, I got crazy backstory. So, you know, I didn't come from a super healthy place. For people that haven't heard this part of it so far, I was drunk for 30 years. I mean, a heavy drinker. I was always that guy. I was the heaviest drinker in the group. I was always the last one to go home. And, you know, to be quite honest, I did a lot of binge drinking. I drank for 4 and 5 days in a row. I was never really an alcoholic. I was more of a drunk, because I could stop the stuff. And once I walked away from the booze for good, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of problem with it. But when I was drinking, I was drinking. A lot of daytime drinking, a lot of drinking to take the edge off, because, you know, you wake up with a hangover, and what do? A little hair of that dog will take the bite off a little bit there. And yeah, I mean, I just went through lots of periods, lots of blackout drunkenness periods, and not your fun kind of cool college doing shot stuff, but some darker type stuff. I used to like to drink in kind of sad, depressing bars. I went through a long period where I liked to drink in little bars, kind of like out of the movie Barfly. Good Bukowski movie, you should check it out. But anyhow, so I drank for 30 years. I did a video one time talking about on here from fried chicken and beer to raw vegan, because about 6 months before I came to this lifestyle, I had just moved to the city. I was in Costa Rica when I started living this raw vegan lifestyle, and up until a few months ago, my whole experience has been down there. But I had moved to about 6 years ago now, because it started earlier. I moved to San Jose, the city in Costa Rica, from the beach where I had been living. And literally 6 or 7 months before I started doing this lifestyle, I was living in a broken down hotel, eating fried chicken and drinking beer most nights for my dinner. Now, as food went in the past, I'll go back a little bit further into my backstory. I was a fat kid, always was a fat kid. I probably wear smaller pants now than I did in the 5th grade, to kind of put that in perspective. So I was a fat kid. I lost weight like between the 6th and the 7th grade. And then I was just like, you know, as I was growing too, I got taller, so I kind of leaned out a little bit. So I wasn't like, you know, after that, I was never like that big kind of fat person anymore, but I was always a bigger guy. You know, go on into college, and I got into the just eating anything and everything, as much of anything and everything, still drinking like a fish, but just going to the gym. I was a gym person, so I just blew up. And at my biggest point, I was like 245 pounds when I was in college at about 21, 22. looked like a big linebacker in American football. I wasn't like super fat and I wasn't like ripped like a bodybuilder, but I was thick, looked like a football player. So I got out of college, and I started. It didn't really need to carry that kind of bulk. So I just over the years I started slimming down. There was never a period where I went from 245 all the way down to one size, but then I dropped from that 245 into the 220 range, and then I went into the teens, and then I remember when I got to 200 and was teetering around 200. Okay, fast forward a number of years, and a lot of drinking later, and I would go through different phases. My story is a little bit more complicated because most people are either just bad or they're good about things. Me, I would have times where I would not care. I would be like, okay, I'll get back on a program or I'll get back healthy soon. And I would literally put anything, just eat, binge eat, wash it down with booze. I could eat fried chicken, pizza, ice cream, and a burger in the same day sometime on those. And I would just feel like, when I was in those periods, it was like, okay, just be as bad can be, because you'll straighten up eventually. And I would go through these health periods, these periods where I'd get quite fit. I'd actually be quite buff. I'd drop down, I'd start shredding a little bit, and I'd cut back on the booze. A few times I'd actually quit the booze for 4, 5, 6 months at a time. And I would instinctively, not knowing anything about this lifestyle at the time, I would drop back, and I would drop back on the animal products. I would drop just instinctively when I decided about getting healthy, getting cleaner, cleaning my body out. Something in my instincts just went to you. I went way back on the animal products, and I would eat a lot more fruit. And one of my things that I carried for a lot of years, reading Fit for Life, I believe, by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond back in the late 80s or so, was eating fruit until noon. So that would be my MO when I would start getting healthy again. Eat fruit till noon, cut back on the animal products, but still having to get that protein. So I was eating eggs and cheese and stuff. Anyhow, I went through a really dark period about 7, 8, 9 years ago. Really dark period where I was just lighting one. There was a lot of stress in my life. I literally, just to make myself be able to get through the days and the night, sometime I would light one Marlboro off the other. Literally light one butt off the other. Drinking a lot. That situation kind of corrected itself, and I moved to the city. But I did a lot of drinking in the city too. I had settled down a bit, but just still that kind of just general waking up every day with kind of a general crappy feeling, doing that, still doing a lot of that maintenance drinking. So I got to a point, we're talking about latter part, like last month of 2011, and I'm going to do your come to Jesus moment on New Year's Day of 2012. January, because I just knew I'd been drinking, so I'd just been tearing my body up. I knew there was going to come a time to pay the bill on all this behavior. I was really worried about my liver after 30 years of drinking, and just in general, I started, at the time, I guess I was starting to see things online, and you see all these unhealthy people, and you see people posting about cancer and heart attacks and all this stuff. And just the way I'd been living, I knew, it was finally time. You need to get this under control. And you need to stop the drinking. So I didn't make it on January 1st. In fact, I had a couple of major drinking binges in that January of that year, 2012. But about the third week of that year, after a major drinking binge, the last time I was drunk, the last time I had to pull myself out of that whole feeling was, I remember I'd been on a 4 or 5 day binge. I thought I'd lost my computer and all my equipment, which was part of my work then as it is now. And after that 4 or 5 day binge, I found myself under the covers in the fetal position because, after those binges, I'd just be shaky. I'd be shaky as shit as I was detoxing that stuff out of my body. Just wishing I had a Valium under there. And I somehow knew right then that would never happen again, that was going to be it. So right then I dropped the booze. A week later, I dropped the cigarettes. Instinctively, again, like I said before, I started cutting back on the animal products. I was eating a lot more fruit. I was drinking a lot of smoothies. I was making a lot of salads. I was still cooking them and sauteing them in oil, but I was doing a lot of vegetables in the pan at night, like sauteing them in the pan. So I did this. This was in about the third week of January. So for the next few months, I progress. I'm on that learning journey now, and you're just going from one place to the next. Something pops up on the internet. You study this for a while. I started looking into things like antioxidants. I started looking into how do you detox your body? Do you get the gunk out of there? A lot of the stuff was gimmicky because it wasn't the kind of detox we've talked about. It was just, these little drink this for 4 days and take this and that. Didn't make a lot of sense, but I kept getting a little cleaner. Instinctively, my animal products were cutting back more and more. Okay, fast forward 2 months after I'd quit drinking, part of my journey, we always hear about how good wine is for you. One glass is really good for you. So I went back to drinking briefly, but I never got back out of hand from about the third week in March or so. For the next 3 months, I drank wine. I drank wine every night. I had 1 glass of red wine at night. And my animal products are still continuing to cut back. So we're going to get to June of 2012. That's when it all happened. So by the time I get to June of 2012, about the third week of June, I don't know why things always seem to happen in the third week of the month for me, but about the third week of June, I somehow, by then, I had already, I would say at the time, I was maybe eating meat 2 or 3 times a week, very small portions, which is common down there. Like you have a big plate of, rice, beans, vegetables, meat. They have smaller portions of meat. So I was having meat 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 3 or 4 ounces of meat at a time. I wasn't drinking milk. I was still using eggs because we need that protein. I was trying to work out, but you still got to get that protein, that animal protein. So I was having eggs 2 or 3 times a week, and sometimes I'd put cheese in there, make like a cheese omelet, but drastically cut back. No more fried chicken, no more, like real garbage type food. So somehow I go down the rabbit hole, and you know how that goes with social media, YouTube, whatever. You click on one thing, you go to that. You watch it for a while, something else comes up on the side, you click on that. So after about 4 or 5 times, I got onto some videos about the raw vegan lifestyle. And that was on a weekend. For some reason, I remember that was on a weekend. And that whole weekend, I watched videos about this raw vegan lifestyle, and I read things about it, and I started searching things on Google. And immediately, just like that, it resonated. I think after that weekend, that weekend I decided, okay, yeah, the booze, even just having the 1 glass of wine a day, that'll probably eventually, the way my history has been, will spin, and I'll get back to drinking more. So then the booze quit for good. Haven't had a drink again since June of 2012. Didn't have animal products again. I went very high raw from that weekend on. Very high raw vegan from that weekend on. There wasn't a whole lot of transition because I realize now, and I've used this phrase a lot of times, I had transitioned over the past 4, 5, or 6 months without realizing I was transitioning at the time by cutting back on those animal products and adding more fruits and vegetables into my diet. So I went, like I say, I went very high raw. From that day, I was vegan. I think in the first year, I did have some honey in the first year, a handful of times. I was never a big honey eater, but can't say I was 100% vegan from that date because I did have some honey. But after the first year, and like I say, that was a few times, completely vegan. Have stayed high raw pretty much ever since that. I've never, you go back through any of my videos, you see I've never strived to ever get to that label of where I'm fully raw vegan. You're never going to see any of my posts like show day 426 or day 1223. Now I've focused on my health. I've focused on getting well. I've focused on repairing my body. And that's what I've done. Now, from time to time, you get a lot of pushback on this lifestyle, and you blah, 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 blah. All I know is how I feel. And I keep, watching this channel, you probably realize I keep things simple. At 53 years old, I feel the absolute best that I've felt in my life. I wake up, every day is predictable now, and not predictable in that bad way. Whereas before, I would wake up and it's like, kind of like just spinning the wheel, and what's it going to land on? How are you going to feel today? How are you going to feel today? I take that for granted now, but I pretty much know. I wake up every day. I feel good every day. Digestion wise, maybe you don't necessarily wake up feeling bad, but think about your digestion. How often did you used to just randomly accept, like, well, shit, I got heartburn today, or I've got a little indigestion, or I'm a little bit slow in my digestion, or I'm going to the bathroom a little bit too much. You just never quite, you never quite knew. Now it's just very boom. You know how your body's going to react. I've got more energy at 53 than I had in my early 40s. I mean, granted, I was drinking like a fish back then, but so for me, it's the proof. I don't need a lot of data and all that kind of stuff. The proof is just simply in how I feel. I feel just absolutely amazing, and I never thought mentally too. Just my attitude on life, my outlook on life. So far, these are absolutely the best years of my life. So that's pretty much it from A to Z. So I used to be a mess. I wish we had all these cameras and phones and whatever back in the day, because I'd be the one that would, how people are always embarrassed when stuff pops up. I wish there were clips of me just hammered drunk. Like I know there's some printed photos, like of some buddies of mine where I was just passed out on the beach, drooling on myself, had busted my knee open. There was blood everywhere. I mean, my friends have some, through various times have pictures, but nothing in video, nothing I could get online. I'd love it, because then that makes your story, you see what you see now. You see what you see now, but I wish I could show you me in the midst of one of those drinking binges. Or I wish I could show you tape of me in that hotel room in San Jose, eating 5 or 6 greasy pieces of chicken and drinking beer to wash it down. Then it hammers that message home a little bit. It's like, that's why I'm like, when people say, well, I don't know about but my circumstances. No, dude, I've been there. I've lived like a piece of garbage before. So, it's all up here in this 6 inches or so. I flipped a switch one day years and years ago on my physical, on my mental, and on my emotional well-being. I just decided that I was going to be happy and healthy from this day forward, and it seems to have worked out so far. So anyhow, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Love you guys. Peace.